Cool.
I'm so surprised and happy that that actually worked out.
Technology
Like,
sometimes.
as a bunch of technologists, it never works out.
Cool. Well, I'm glad everyone seems to be making it in. This is awesome. Thank you for doing that little jump. This is recording now because this is my own Zoom link, so I think we'll be able to record, and we'll also share around the notes that Veronica took for the first part of the call. So for the second part, let's do another question. The next question for the panel is, what's a learning from your local brigade that you want to apply at the national level? So from your experience with your local brigades, what's something that you want to apply at the national level? And let's start this time East Coast-ish, and then move our way the other way to the West Coast. So let's start from the South. So let's start with Carl from Savannah, and then we'll work our way up a little bit to the North Carolina folks. So Carl, what's a learning from your local brigade that you'd like to apply at the national level?
Yeah, so I think that it's, for us at least, it's been critically important because Savannah is not the, I think it's the smallest city that is represented here this evening. It's only a metro area of about 500,000 people. Because it's a smaller city, I was worried initially there wouldn't be a capacity for what we're doing, but there is, because we just had to look everywhere for it. And it turns out, actually, there's an amazing framework for this. It's called asset-based community development. And it was something that was actually pioneered by a former Savannah city manager. And we've actually found out a lot about that. We've actually done some ABCD training. That's what it's called. Yeah, thanks, Jason. Yeah. But so the notion of asset-based community development is that you look, instead of looking for outside resources to help your community grow, that you look for the talents that are already there, and that you look to the margins, especially. So we found all kinds of, the people that you wouldn't expect that would normally be involved in the civic tech movement, who have come in, learned, and then gotten really passionate about it. If you go to our blog, our medium publication, Open Savannah, it's just blog.opensavannah.org. You can read a few of them, and it's just been really inspiring. If I hit 30-second chat? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, so that's the big thing that we've applied and that I think we've benefited from a lot. It's like I feel we engage the whole community almost, and it's a great feeling.
Cool. Thank you, Carl. Let's do the North Carolina folks next. Eric, what's a learning from your local brigade that you want to apply at the national level?
Okay. There's actually two, and they sort of echo two things that Carl said first in the first question and then just now. And by the way, I think we win the smallest because we're a city of 80,000 in an area of maybe 300. So the one that I talk about all the time, the big one, is reaching out into the community, finding the people who are already both affected by and dealing with the issues, and letting them drive the conversation and drive the decisions about what we're going to build, what we're going to prioritize. We've done that with our homeless community, and we've done it with the local Black Lives Matter and NAACP. And it's really, what it's meant is that what we do has been right on target for what people need, because we've let them tell us what they are. And it turns out that these groups really have a pretty good idea of what they need built or what they need help with. We didn't need to sit around and be clever. So that's the big one. The second one echoes something that Carl said actually about consistency. We do a newsletter, and we've been doing it for about a year, and we managed to do it every 2 weeks for about 9 months. And the point is not that we should all do newsletters. The point is that 9 months of 100% consistent, it gets out every 2 weeks. It's taken that long, and I'm now starting to get word back that people have been on this for months, using it as a way of kind of finding out what's going on. And I think committing to something, doing it consistently over a long enough time for it to actually realize the benefit and pay back, so that you start hearing about whether it's paying back. I think in the past, we've sometimes done something and given up too quickly.
Cool. Thank you, Eric. Jill from Charlotte, and then Jason after her.
Hey, so so in Charlotte, we've been developing a more interactive approach to onboarding new volunteers. This process includes having them give each other the information via cards that we hand out at an orientation. We are in the process of adopting and modifying Code for Baltimore's hack challenges to be project specific, as well as creating a one-stop shop for information. I believe that our onboarding is kind of a balance between a fire hose of information and leaving them wondering how to get involved. So we're looking for ways to continually look at new ways to kind of straddle that fence and keep our volunteers knowledgeable, but not overwhelmed, and engaged, but not burdensome on our senior developers or senior project leads, to try to figure out the best way to do that. That interactive approach has actually been really helpful for us. So I think that when we look at how we onboard new brigades, how we set up a leadership academy or a mentorship project, our best option is making it as interactive as possible, because it keeps everybody engaged. That's it.
Cool. Thank you. Up next is Jason, and let's after that go up. Let's go up north, up the East Coast, up to Jesse after Jason.
Great. So I've got maybe a couple small ones. The first one, because of our unique area here in the Triangle, we've got a couple of couple cities that are relatively close to each other, 20 to 30 minutes apart. And so one of the things that I think we've done really well here in the Triangle is to work together as a region. And so we've just got a lot of just valuable insight, how we can work together, and then being able to apply that to now how do we work with the other NC brigades, and then how do we collaborate across the network. So I think there's just a lot of institutional knowledge that we figured out that that we can definitely share with the broader network. And within that, I think we've gotten really good at balancing the in-person versus the virtual work. So for example, when we do our NC Open Pass planning, which is our event series for the year, we have our initial meeting, 1 or 2, is in person, and then we move to strictly virtual. So it really kind of, the in-person helps us get to know each other, and then we can work really
Oh no, AT&T Wi-Fi. Jason, are you still there? Sadly, no. Okay, let's go up to Jesse from Boston. What's a learning from your local brigade that you want to apply at the national level?
Hey, so I live in Boston, but most of my brigade experience honestly comes from San Francisco, where I was captain for 3 years. So I have been to Boston, but thanks, Aaron. Quite a few times, but I am not totally experienced and I've never been on Boston's leadership. That said, in San Francisco, something that I was most proud of, I think, was getting a diversity of folks attending. So I believe we hit gender parity a number of times. I know that we did very, very consistent outreach to a variety of different groups. So trying to get socioeconomic diversity, trying to get racial diversity. It is a ton of work, and I come back to what my priority is for the NAC, like documenting that process and documenting how much work it takes to bring in folks who are not looking like me is really hard. And I think it's really important for our movement to do. And in that same vein, when you do that, you also bring in folks who have problems that need and they need help and they need resources. And so you can sort of get this double play of, we're doing outreach to these folks who are not represented, and we're getting them to not just maybe come and participate, but come and bring their issues from their community, so that our communities can join together and we can then move forward. So that, I would say, is the thing that I took away most, is the how much work it takes. It is not a small amount of work to do that. It takes a really long time and consistency. So that is the thing I have learned.
Cool. Thank you, Jesse. Jason, are you back on? Oh,
Am I working?
Yeah. Yeah, you are.
Apparently my computer does not want me to talk to all of you great people tonight. So can anyone know where I might have dropped off? And I'll just quickly summarize it to save time.
The issue is I was listening to Jesse, and so I forgot.
That's okay. Okay, so two things. First, we learned a lot about how do we work together as a region, and so bringing that that ability to work together across brigades is a big lesson that we've learned. And then going from getting the right balance of in-person to virtual. And so we've been able to, with some of our event planning, we meet up front and get to know each other, build the trust, build the relationships, and then we're able to go virtual and get a lot of work done very efficiently because we know each other and we trust people to get their work done. So
cool. Hopefully
I won't drop off anymore.
Yeah, I think you got most of that. Cool. Let's continue with East Coasters. Noel, what learning from your brigade would you like to apply to the national level?
Cloning and biohacking. So how to stay sane and more or less figure out ways of sustainability. We've been able to grow our leadership team to be funded in some way, shape, or form. So there's now 2 full-time staff members from our leadership team. And how do we go about navigating that ecosystem where you are a passionate volunteer and you know that you're leading a community, and how do you turn that into your day job? So sustainability, business practices, how do you secure government contracting, and ultimately, how do you have a solid foundation for those types of activities? In Beta NYC, 4 or 5 years ago, we wrote the People's Roadmap to a Digital New York City, which became a community manifesto as well as a policy document that we could develop programming off of. And that has been the single guiding force in our operations. Sustainability and and then figuring out like how do you build that base and that backbone to move yourself to be professional.
Nice. Chris Alfano from Philly.
The big thing I've learned from our local work is that the best results happen when we build diverse teams that cut across all the different groups, backgrounds, sectors, crafts, and communities that are touched by common problems. Our Launchpad model of hackathon has been very successful in bringing folks in our city together around families of related problems and opportunities. And I'm a big supporter of Jason's BAT work, and I want to continue to support the formation and progress of BATs around national open source infrastructure and tools for our most pressing challenges. We need tools built from the valuable knowledge that you can only get from folks doing work on the ground all across the country. So I want to look for ways that we can look to the work people are doing that have their hands on things on the ground and see how we can bring them together around shared resources and tools.
Awesome. And Dawn.
So we actually did a session, myself and our projects lead, who kind of developed out the Launchpad model. And I think that's a great theoretical and practical thing that I'd love to test out with more brigades. It's been really cool to see other people adopting it and really seeing a lot of success, even just to reframe how they think about hackathons. The inspiration really came from this idea that trying to have a productive weekend and have something to show really just wasn't going to be sustainable or effective for civic tech projects, especially when we want to talk about problems that are so dense and complicated, and we want to have people who are diverse and actually from the community, and it's just not something you can do in a weekend. And the reality is that it's too much of an apples to apples comparison to other hackathons that have prize money, and they're kind of just there to be in and out and have a project. So we really use hackathons as a way to build out the community, and so it's really important for us to get it right. And we spend a lot of time building partnerships, both within the tech community, Chris mentioned this, the design community, other people who are in the tech space, but maybe not specifically technical or coding, but also it's a great opportunity for us to work with government partners. I mean, there really is no substitute for having something so tangible and to have such a great condensation of the time and kind of the community itself, and really highlight that to our government leaders. I mean, I think that we have really great connections and kind of have impressed people by saying, this is a community of people who want to help you. You really need to let us help you. So I think that there's a lot of great pieces there. And then it's also just a really practical model that you can use pretty quickly that gives people more time. And then I think what we're going to continue to iterate on is how do we build teams that kind of can stay together and continue to work together, and what makes a really great team that can deliver really great software that can scale and redeploy.
Awesome. Let's jump over to the West Coast. Taylor from Phoenix.
So the biggest thing I've learned from my local brigade is that, I don't know, it's kind of poetic, but you can't expect a flower to bloom right after planting a seed. So building a brigade or building a national organization takes time, and that's okay. The fact that we're all here on this call and engaging in these conversations is amazing and really helpful. I'm like bookmarking all of the links that you guys are posting in the channel. You can nurture a seed and you can give it water and light, and then a rainstorm kind of plows through it all. And so I want us to be able to fail and fail fast on a national level. We need to be more agile. We need to move quickly and easily. And the quicker we find out what works and what doesn't, and we have these conversations, the best we can address these needs across the organization.
Awesome. Thank you. Aaron from Oakland.
From Oakland. Local, what would I apply at the national level? Engaging with your community and your government as users and stakeholders. It might sound kind of obvious, but I've seen a number of projects that have gone pretty far into like the problem solving area without actually talking to their potential users. So they're solving a problem that doesn't really exist. Having stakeholders who can speak to the problems, who can help validate assumptions and connect you to actual users is huge. I think it's also like essential to the kind of problems that we want to tackle at the national level. Open disclosure, one of the projects that I worked on in Code for San Francisco and Open Oakland. We've been very fortunate to have staff of the Public Ethics Commission to attend regularly at Hack Nights. And so they've been really valuable to shape the vision of the product and kind of like our roadmap for that. So kind of getting back to the basics about kind of user-centered design and building solutions for real people, I think is huge.
Awesome. And from LA, Nina, what's a learning from your local brigade that you want to apply at the national level?
So the big thing for me, since we started hosting weekly hack nights, what I've learned through doing that is kind of the power of having direct interactions with our members, encouraging a fun and supportive atmosphere. Because even though we're all brought together by this idea of service and volunteering and civic tech, we're all three-dimensional people with more aspects to our lives, and it helps us develop meaningful relationships with each other, and it keeps people coming back and making them feel like it's a real community where they can relate to the people they're working with. I feel like interactions, whether they're digital or personal, the power is in not just utilizing like a mass communication broadcast type of system, but direct interaction so that you can get to know individual people beyond just their Slack handle or Twitter account and what they see there. And I think that that's something that we could apply at the national level to get people more engaged.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for answering. We have just about 7 minutes left, and we do have one more question. So I'm going to ask everyone to limit their answers to just 1 minute for this last question. And I'm also going to ask folks to just raise your hand if you want to answer. If you don't want to answer, no big deal, but that might save us some time. So I'm going to ask the question, and if you'd like to answer, just raise your hand, and I'll just call on folks. And then once the next when that person is finished, if everyone raises their hand, then I'll call on the next person. So the final question, again, just please limit yourself to 1 minute or less, is how do you think the Code for America Brigade program should fit into the larger civic tech ecosystem? So civic tech has grown into this big thing, and how do you think our brigade network, our brigade program should fit into that? Who'd like to go first? Show of hands. Eric.
So I guess I'm sort of a true believer in the movement aspect of this. I see the brigades as kind of our 21st century model for being citizens. And I really believe that kind of in revitalizing our democracy, we have to do that locally and up. And I think the brigades are really where they're the biggest source of energy for doing that. And I think we need to kind of own that ourselves. We need to have a really strong relationship with the national organization, but we need to do that from a position of kind of, we own who we are, we own where we're going, and we then become great partners for the national organization. We can leverage them.
Awesome. And I'd also like to answer that, Jill.
Sorry, unmuting is not as fast as you think it is. So yeah, I agree with Eric that like civic tech has become this great movement. I think for us to be better partners with it, we need to hold the keys to communication. Just like we want to be thoughtful, collaborative partners with each other, we need to be able to do that with the larger ecosystem. And that goes beyond CFA holding all the keys to connect organizations. Charlotte has had a lot of partnerships with like Girls Develop It, as well as I know Philly does, and Data for Democracy, which have been a huge help for us. So, but those are all like on a personal, like city level. And I know at least Data for Democracy, when they tried to connect with CFA on a network level, it didn't work so well. And I think it's because we don't really have a great way to communicate with the network as a whole.
Cool. Jason. And then
Jason, yeah, I would echo what Eric said around just kind of being consumed by the movement and wanting to just do whatever we can. I think I'll just maybe summarize it hopefully in 5 words or less. We need to be leaders, we need to be listeners, and we need to be change agents.
Cool. Jesse.
That was faster than I was expecting, Jason. So I'll keep it quick. Part 1 for me comes back to governance with CFHQ. I think something that I bring that was perhaps a little unique is that I was there all the time running Code for SF and got to see how they work. So thinking about how the brigade functions with the larger CFAHQ functioning within the larger civic tech ecosystem is important. And then I think there are three steps to like where we fit in. One is being like a welcome to the ecosystem and the community. It's okay to just come for social purposes. That's one of the most important insights I got from a friend in San Francisco, Julie Giddis. Hi, if you're watching. She just came for social reasons to hang out with cool people. So that's also okay. I also think the brigades should be a feeder system for full-time jobs, whether that's government or nonprofit or whatever it is, or civic tech companies. And then I think we should prototype a lot. Lots of prototyping. On the ground, local prototyping. We're not making full-blown company out of civic tech stuff, out of our civic tech stuff. Thanks, Tom.
Awesome. Anyone else? So how should the brigade program fit into the larger civic tech ecosystem? Taylor.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So I think that as brigades, some of us exist independently, but luckily for us, we're still under the Code for America umbrella, and I really think that's a good thing. So on a national scale, we have this footprint of civic tech, but locally, if you ask someone on the street, do they know what civic tech is? What does it mean to them? There's still very much this disconnect in our communities, and connecting with our local governments and connecting with our communities are really the start to a larger conversation. And as a whole, if we can connect with each other through conferences and at a national level with our national government and help increase our footprint, I think that's what's going to make this grow as an organization.
Cool, thank you. Anyone else like to answer that? Nina, and then Carl.
Kind of similar to what's already been said, I see our role as the brigades as that interface with the community and the public at large, those who aren't already involved but are interested. They want to learn. This sounds intriguing to them. We're their entry point. We're showing them, look how broad civic tech is. Here's how you can get involved. Come join us, do this. And then, yes, you can get jobs here, volunteer, and be part of these other initiatives going on. So I see our role as, kind of ushering or guiding the community into civic tech.
Cool. Carl. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, that was silly. Sorry about that. To sum it up in a few words, to quote President Obama, we are the ones we've been waiting for, I think. And as someone just said very well, I see the brigades as entry points to not only just civic technology, but just civics in general. I would say that at least our organization is the only organization in Savannah that's dedicated to, or even the entire the broader metro region, is dedicated to this notion of civics. There's not any other organization like it that really exists. There's neighborhood associations, but they're geographically dispersed. I think that it's an entry point to civics in 2018 because, yes, of course, technology is a part of it because we live in a technologically different world. But I think that, yeah.
Nice.
We're the entry point. Sorry.
Cool. Chris Alfano.
I see the brigade program really as the heart, soul, feet, and ground of the civic tech movement, from which ideas, projects, and talent rise from the ground up to fuel and constantly refresh larger and national efforts. I think vendors should be forming and recruiting from brigades as much as possible. I think governments should be recruiting from and getting their talent from brigades first. Projects should start local whenever possible on the ground and grow first by opening channels between the local folks working on similar things with their hands on the ground. Everything we do should be informed by questions of what we can teach and help, what we can do to teach and help empower brigade members to take whatever we're working on and help carrying it forward in the same direction, different directions, whatever they creatively want to explore. I'm a big believer that in any movement, everything that can should start from the ground and return to the ground, and everything else is really traffic control and catalysts.
Cool. Anyone else? Noel.
Everything should come from the ground and then go to the ground. Wow, that is the statement of all of us being Stardust. I'll just read a little bit of like where Beta NYC sees our mission in regards to civic technology and how I think really this applies to the national network. And that is, we are an informed and empowered public that can leverage civic design, technology, and data to hold our governments accountable and to improve our collective economic opportunity. And we do this by three things. We do this by empowering the public with tools, education, and data. We demystify these systems, whether they're government, technology, design, or data, with the goal of improving access to everyone. And ultimately, we are the platform where we can explore a world of possibilities by providing a safe space for all of us to collaborate and organize in an open community where we want to improve our local communities. And I think that the Brigade community, as well as Code for America, has been the tip of that spear to inject this conversation of using technology, data, and design to improve our lives. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see this network grow.
Awesome. Anyone else? Aaron.
I shouldn't have gone last. All these great ideas. I think in terms of the larger ecosystem, the brigades are a space for conversation. It's a space for the community to come in, for different groups to come in and discuss what's working and what's not, and then apply that, learn from that, and apply that to government. Brigades have always been, a great place for junior folks to sharpen their skills and develop a portfolio in order to get a job. And so we can kind of leverage that to show, here's our things that are working and here's what's not. And, we'll help train up folks so that we can give you people who can help you accomplish those things that are working well and what's not. So just having a space for these conversations to happen, between government and its citizens at the local and state and federal level as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. Anyone else? Cool. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for participating. And as a reminder, if you're watching at home, this recording or live right now, the voting ends, I believe, on Friday at around noon Eastern, noon Pacific, I believe is the deadline. So please vote. Yep.
Hey, Luigi, just real quick, I am putting in the link to the notes from the beginning of the form. So if you can add anything to your answers, please. I was still trying to troubleshoot, so missed a little bit. So please add anything extra to your answers, and thanks for dealing with all the technical difficulties.
No worries. Thanks for organizing, Veronica. And thank you to all the candidates and everyone watching at home. And we have more regional forums coming up this week. Just check the Medium blog post for those dates and links, and we'll probably be updating those links just to solve some more technical difficulties. And have everyone have a really good Monday night, and it was great to see everyone. Bye.